Um,
I'm going to start recording because
awesome.
I want everybody to hear every minute of this conversation. Not.
Ev-
So Adrienne came on the screen. Okay, I have to
Hi.
say, I am such a fan of Adrienne Glasser. She,
Yay.
she,
I'm a
unbeknownst to
fan of
her, although
Molly.
I sometimes do tell you this on social media that you reparent me just from posting. So Adrienne
Oh,
came on the screen
love that.
and her hair was down, and I always put my hair up in a top knot because I think it makes me look the best. It's really my in the box move. But today, because I have you on the podcast, I'm practicing wearing my hair down and loving myself as I am.
I love this. Let your hair down.
You're
I
like,
love this.
what do you want to talk about on the podcast? I was like,
Yes.
why we're craving and turn to eating disorders and addictions, just some light chat. For those of you listening, Adrienne and I have known each other for over 20 years. Isn't that frightening?
That is crazy.
I
And I was
know.
thinking about this. It's amazing.
I know.
We've just been connected all these years in such an amazing way. I love
I've known
this.
you since the first day I got a job as a therapist. That's when I met you. And I've been a therapist for 20. I don't even want to talk about it. It's too many years.
I'm with you on this. I mean,
Too
we
many
were
years.
young.
We
We
were
were
young.
young.
I know. And here we
Whoa.
look at us now.
Exactly.
Well, the thing I really love about us, which is what I do want to talk about today, I'm sure everybody's just so flippin' excited to spend their spare time listening to the memories of our friendship. Sorry, y'all, but that's sort of, you got to start the conversation somehow. But the thing
We're keeping it
I guess
real.
you have so much to teach us today that I like. Sometimes I really prep for things, but thinking about prepping for what you were going to teach us today hurt my head too much. And it felt like I was actually moving into my head too much. And if I know anything about Adrienne, get out of your head, my friend. So I'm a wounded healer. I came to this thing, to heal myself, and it worked. Not the way I thought it would. But how did you get to here are all the things? I mean, of course we heard the bio in the intro, but meditation teacher, me too, spiritual teacher, me too, psychotherapist, me too. And then you're a certified IFS practitioner, which I'm obsessed with family systems and I want everybody to know about it. And I'm obsessed with somatic movement, which she
Yes.
also is. You're just so many things. How did you become so many things? How did you come to the world of healing? Tell us everything.
Okay. I'm going to do it all in 1 second.
Yeah.
Ready?
Just like 36 minutes we got. No big deal. No pressure.
It's really funny that like going through my bio essentially like makes the head hurt. And it's like it's funny. It's just like all the parts and what we need to pay attention to in a bio.
Mm,
Right? Isn't that like it's
right.
just like everybody goes through this of like, how do I introduce myself? How do we write a bio? It's like, what part of you is even writing these things, right?
Yes.
And so it's very
And by
hard
the
to
way,
just,
usually not
yeah,
like my highest self. It's usually very like this lacking part of me, like, please like me, please respect me, please want to hang out
yeah,
with me and let me help you. Like this very little
yeah.
part of me.
Yeah, and I have like this little part that was like I have to do every training and everything in order to be a good therapist, you know. And now I'm like, really? I'm just trying to be authentic about the whole thing. And when I wrote the bio, it's more like, hey, I just want folks to trust that I know what I'm talking about because when I listen to other people, I'm like, do you know what you're talking about?
Mhm.
Because prove it, right? Like,
Right.
so
Right. You're like, I'm a
I
trauma
have those
specialist. You're
parts.
like, from where? What'd you do? Where'd you learn? I feel that way too.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Also,
Because
I found really bad therapy in my days. And so I think that's also why I'm super careful about who I listen to and who people I love listen to also.
yes, same, same. Like, you know, I was in therapy since I'm like 14, 15 years old.
Mhm.
And just having bad experiences, I was like, okay, it can be better than this.
Mhm.
So I came to this from a place of suffering,
Mm.
from a place of, struggling a lot as a kid, but then also being surrounded by therapists in my family. So my mom's a therapist, my sister's a therapist. I married someone whose parents are psychoanalysts. Like we have therapists
Wow.
everywhere. And so, yeah, it was just this suffering of like coming from a place of having a lot of addiction,
Mm,
right? There was a lot of addiction around me, a lot of trauma around me, and also a lot of like therapy talk. So this is like the nest egg that I grew up in. And really going to therapy and being like, it's got to be different than this. Like we got to do something different. And so I went through my own healing really early, started it at least, with trauma, healing from trauma and healing from addictions and healing from food
mm,
issues,
right.
right?
Hmm.
And then I became a therapist like around the same time. So it's like this, wounded healer. You said it best.
Yeah.
Like this wounded healer that's like, okay, how can I do this? Be accountable to myself and then also try to help other people. And so I had all these striving parts. Like we were talking, like all these, like, I need to know what I'm doing. I need to, be the best. I need to, covering up like a lot of parts that felt very insecure and then overcompensating
Mm,
and then also being in the food, right?
mm.
Like being in the food to come down from it all at night. Right. So like during the day,
Oh,
go, 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 go. And then at night, just like, okay, what do I need to do to numb myself to not have to feel anything? Right.
well, I
And
think
then
anybody who's listening is now, thank you for listening to the beginning of our friendship because we're here. This is how long, clock it at like 3.5 minutes, Molly and Adrienne. Okay, we're here. I'm ready.
exactly, exactly. And so when I became a very young therapist
Mm,
around the same time, I felt incredibly insecure. I think even when we first met, I like felt like I had so much to prove. I was just like just in proving it, proving it, proving it. And I was really suffering at the same time. And so
mm,
I became this like very buttoned up therapist. I was like, I remember my first job, I was like at a rehab, working at a rehab, wearing like suits, like almost like, working girl style. Like I
mm,
like was wearing suits with the shoes and the whole thing. And it was all about like having to be put together.
mm.
And so I remember really early on doing an intake, doing like that first session that everyone loves, right? I'm saying sarcastically. Um, and I'm like, okay, client has restricted affect, and I'm like, check, check,
Mm,
check, checking all the boxes, and then all of a sudden I hear from the other room, "Screw you!" like at the top of their lungs, and I'm like, I want to be doing that. Like I
mm.
don't know what they're doing in that room, but that's what I want to be doing
Wow.
because I'm working and striving and then going to meetings after work to try to work on my food and then just feeling so lost. And then hearing the authenticity of just like screw you. I knew they were doing experiential therapy. That's what they were doing.
Mhm,
And I knew that I needed to do something like that.
mm.
I had to like I was going to psycho analytic school, which is fine, it has its place, but not for me
Yeah.
because I am the person that helps folks to like get into their authenticity and get into because that's what I needed. I was like, okay, and I did all this training with expressive arts, psychodrama, playing role plays, doing movement, and just being able to help people to get out of the box, like get
How
out
did
of the
you find it
box.
for yourself? I did some experiential therapy. I went to rehab and I went to for my codependency, and there wasn't
Yeah.
a cognitive behavioral assignment around me. And it was a lot of like writing letters to a grave and doing psychodrama.
Yes. Yep.
And it was the most uncomfortable, most powerful thing I've ever done so far in my life. And I think even as I get older, I move into intensati and movement and mantra and shamanism and all this stuff because there's just only so much the brain can do. That's what we know, right?
Yes. There's only so much that we can think ourselves through. It's like that,
But how did you
self
find
knowledge
it?
avails us nothing.
Exactly. Self knowledge
Yeah.
wasn't something. But I think the other things like this is an interesting interview just because I know you so like more personally and professionally, and you're so different than when I first met you. I'm sure, but like I mean, so
Yes.
different because I knew you as this buttoned up person, and now I just
Yep.
see you. To me, you are the most authentic person that I probably know. You're the person who gives the
Hmm.
at least present upon presentation. And I actually want to know
Yes.
how you did this. This is for all of us. You're the person who gives upon presentation, the least shit of anybody I know. You are
Yeah.
the freest person I know.
I'm working on giving the least shits, which is like it's a practice. It's not work, it's a
Sure.
practice, right?
Yeah, I want to hear
It's
all about
like,
that. I want to hear all about that. Can you
yeah,
tell us? Because, like,
yeah,
I think that's
yes,
what you need to teach us today. How do we do that?
yes. Well, you got to start somewhere, right? And
Okay.
the first place to start is like, how do you bring a witness to your experience?
Like, not
And
like a witness within myself, not like bring a friend,
yes,
because I love a good codependent moment.
yeah, it's
I'm like, so
both.
should I bring my friend Lauren with me everywhere? Because, like, I'm so down for that.
Kind of, because there are times where we can cultivate a witness, like an embodied witness of ourselves. So to
Mm,
notice like what's happening in a given moment and where we're at in our thinking and where I'm at in my body. So we can cultivate that kind of witness and like what's happening with my emotions, what's happening with different parts of me. And then there are times where we cannot cultivate a witness. We are too blended with our experience, with our
mm,
addictions, with our parts,
mhm.
and we need to call in other people and have that other person there to lend their self energy to us so that we actually can be witnessed so that we can start to witness ourselves. That
So
like,
that's like the primary space. It's so funny. Every time I have
yes,
an interview like this, I think to myself how much I would hate listening to this interview, because I would be thinking,
yeah,
I just hate myself so much. I can't stop eating. I can't stop drinking. I'm a worthless piece of crap. What are you guys
yep,
even talking about? So, when in the most
yep,
basic way, where do we
yes,
start? Because when I say you're the freest person I know, I say it in such an aspirational way. Because I think when you're
mm,
as free as you appear to be, turning, your cravings are minimal. Life gets lifey, but cravings are minimal because there's nothing to crave because you're just in yourself the whole time. It's good. It's a cool place to hang out.
yeah. Well,
So where do
it's
we start with
it's
all
not,
of it, do you think?
yes. We start with number one, anything that's coming up, all addictions, all of our parts, and even the parts that hate us, are
Mm.
protective or hold wounding.
Unpack that for me, my friend.
Yeah.
I'm riveted.
So, moment of compassion for the listener who is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I hate myself. Like,
Yeah. I can't do this. Why are you guys even?
yes. Yep. Everything that's happening is either protection, it's a form of protection, or it's coming from wounding. It's not
Mm.
anything that anyone's doing on purpose, and it's just a reflection of where you've been and not who you are.
Hmm. When you say it's coming from wounding, can you say more
Yeah.
about that? Like, I get the
Yeah.
protection part. My brain is always trying to protect me,
Yeah.
and it feels really nasty, but I'm like, thank you. I don't need that.
Yeah.
But what about
And
coming from wounding? What does that mean?
yeah, so we have the protection because of the wounding.
Mm,
So we all have an authentic self. We're born, we're kids and we do what kids do. Like for me it was movement, it was dancing, it was those moments of just being in my room by myself, my record player. And for other people it's like camping out in their tent, or like for other people it's being immersed in books or
mhm.
being immersed with animals. We all
Yeah.
have this authentic self. And at some point life inevitably tells us you can't do that.
Mm,
You can't be that, you can't do that, and you're not safe if you do that
mm,
because of whatever we experience, either in our relationships with our family, the rules that are either implied or are explicit growing up.
right.
We
Like, you're
get
too, like,
all
Molly,
this
get over it. You're too much. Something
too
like that.
much. Yeah,
Yeah,
too
you're too much,
much,
Molly. Yeah.
too big,
Yeah. Stop being so dramatic.
too
Mhm.
sensitive,
Yeah.
yeah, dramatic, all
Check,
of it,
check, check,
right?
check,
We
check.
get all this messaging. Check, check, check. And then we also get messaging from the system that we're in, which is like oppression, all the isms, like we get all this messaging. And so if somebody has body image issues, I'm like, of course you do. That makes
How do
sense.
you not? Right.
Of that makes so much sense
Mhm,
because we get bombarded with all of these traumatic experiences and we think it's us. That's what
mm,
kids do,
mhm.
right? Kids think it's us. And we stay in that state if child parts don't get attended to, if our wounding doesn't get attended to. We think it's us. We think there's something fundamentally wrong with us
Right.
rather than something happened to us and that we're fundamentally good. And this is the paradigm of like both Buddhist psychology and IFS and all the things that are just the foundation of what I do, which is
Mhm.
that we're fundamentally good, and anything that you're struggling with is either coming from protection or wounding.
So
And the protection is protecting the wounding.
right, that makes all I mean, that makes all the sense in the world to me. So so we start by understanding that's what you're saying. We start by
Yes.
understanding. Like I treat a lot of people, I'm sure you do too, that say things like, I just can't do it. I don't want it badly
Yeah.
enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm too screwed up to be able to do this. I can never
Yep.
do this. Like
Yep.
when you're thinking about this wounding and you're thinking about the protection,
Yep.
where do we start with that with ourselves also?
Yeah. Well, that with that example of somebody who's like, I can't, I would want to get to know that part, the
Yeah.
part that says I can't.
So let's talk about IFS because I love
Yes.
IFS. I mean, if I, in my spare time, I want to get trained in IFS, but instead I'll just have a friend like you. Can you talk to us about IFS, what it is, what it means? I love like
Yeah.
unveiling new ideas for people to maybe go for some
Yes.
healing.
Yes. So with the example of like I can't and through a parts lens, we're getting to know a protective part that's saying I can't do this. It's too much. I can't. And at some point in that person's life, for example, they learned to say I can't as a way of shutting down their nervous system
Hmm.
and staying safe.
Mhm.
So I would want to get to know this part that's saying I can't and to understand why that's happening for good reason.
Right.
Like what is happening right now that makes sense,
Mhm.
right? Like this is making sense for some good reason. Because most of the time people are like, I can't. And it's very easy for friends or family or helpers to be like, you can.
Right.
It's like, it's very, because we're dealing with like internal polarizations, which I'll get to.
Yeah.
And then as if somebody's polarized inside saying I can't, there's going to be us on the outside saying you can. And what they really need, what everyone really needs is the compassion of like, why does it make sense for you to say you can't?
Right.
And where does that, like, what's the wounding that it feels too painful or too risky to move forward?
Mm.
Most people are afraid of failure. Most people are afraid of, like, if I take the risk to try, I'm going to fail,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
and that pain
Or
of
if I take,
failing, that
yeah,
perfectionism is I wish it could be like a clinical diagnosis. It is I think it is that. It causes so much misery and illness thinking we need to
yeah,
be perfect and being so scared of
yeah,
being rejected.
yeah, because that was our experiences growing up. I mean, to me, if it's happening now in the present moment, you can bank on the fact that this is your experience.
Yeah.
You could just bank on it.
Yep.
Like if you're having this experience of I can't because it feels too scary to take the risk, that means that when you're a child, that was happening. That must have been happening. And to have compassion for that experience of, oh my God, what was it like for you that anytime you tried, you felt like you were failing?
When you were first getting trained in this,
Yeah.
what was it like doing your own work and like what was it like for you?
Yeah. So I had this parallel process of learning about parts. So parts are just their experiences that we all have. It's like the movie Inside Out,
It is
right?
like the movie
So
Inside Out.
it's like the movie Inside
Hi
Out where,
happy, hi sad.
yeah, they have
Uh-huh.
these mini personalities that live within our mind body, and they have a personality of their own. And unlike the movie Inside Out, we actually get to know them as if, like, the character Riley has a relationship with each one of them. So we're having a relationship, we're learning to have a relationship with the, like, for example, the I can't part,
Mhm.
right? And so we get to learn to have a relationship with these sensations, images, memories that are these little mini personalities so that we can have compassion for why they do what they do and we can
Mm,
heal.
mm,
And we do this from our authentic self. So everybody has an authentic self. No matter what they've been through, no matter how many parts they have, everybody has an authentic self. And at first it might just be the ability to like be like, "Oh, it's happening right now. I'm hating myself."
mm. Like that's
Like that.
growth.
Yes, those are
Right.
little moments of being able to be in touch with your authentic self, your
Right.
self that can witness your experience.
Because
And
what
so
we're saying
everybody
is,
has that capacity.
so if I'm saying, oh, wow, that part of me that believes I can't is coming up right now, that means it's not my whole self anymore because I can name it. It's just a part of me and not my whole self. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated. I'll try to simplify it. The parts are part of us, and the
Right.
key is integration.
Mm,
So it's not a quality of self to have an agenda. So a part that says I can't has the agenda of saying I can't, so we can shut down the whole nervous system, or we don't take the risk, or
right.
whatever reason they
No, but I
have.
love that idea of wanting to shut down the nervous system, to not want to get jolted and not want to have
Yeah.
to go fight, flight, fawning, all of
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's different from the aspect of yourself that then comes in as a witness and is like, "Oh, it's happening." Right?
Mm,
Like it's happening. I'm shutting down. I'm saying I can't. And then having a moment, if you can, of curiosity of like, why now?
hmm,
Why now shutting down? Like what's happening? Oh, I've been doing too much during the day. Or like, oh, I'm overwhelmed with all whatever the reasons are, but the curiosity creates a pause, and the pause is the place where we actually have choices,
mm. I mean, this is just one big meme. Yes.
right? Like
But
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
need to create the pause, and everybody knows we need to create a pause. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I need to like meditate," and everyone we know this is the answer, but it's more like in day-to-day life when you have the cluttering of thoughts, the ability to witness it's happening. Like right now, it's happening.
And I think there's this other piece I'm sort of
Creates the
thinking
pause.
about. I'm sort of reflecting on my day yesterday. Lucky me, I'm just such a good patient for you. But I was having this really, what's a good word for it? I was having this, I'm just going to use a word. I don't love it. I was having this really dysfunctional thought. And it was like, this person doesn't want to be friends with me anymore because I'm too much. They said that's just what they think. They said something else, but that's really what they think. And because you were saying that sometimes we can't find it within ourselves, we have to find it within other people. And I actually
Mhm.
bravely said it out loud to a friend in my spiritual community. I said, this is what my brain is
Mhm.
thinking about it. And Adrienne, she started crying. My friend
Mm.
started crying. She goes, Molly, that's the saddest thing I ever heard, that's what you're taking from this experience. I have a lot of practice in all of this. I just had a really dark day yesterday.
Yeah.
So I was actually able to take from that experience, like, whoa, whoa. But I wonder if I think I'm very advanced and still I had that day.
Yes.
So I wonder, like,
Because that's normal. Yes.
thank you. God, you're such a good therapist. I'm having the best
Yeah.
time. I feel like, do you want to send me a bill after this? I'm down for it. Um, but I guess I'm sitting here wondering, like, I wonder if we're even getting too advanced to say, bring compassion. Because what happens when you can't even decipher it, when it's just abuse all the time in your head? I think there was a part of me that was like, hey, Penny, let me tell you what I'm thinking because I just need to check this on somebody.
Yeah,
And
of
Penny's like,
course.
whoa, that's so sad. I need to cry. But I
Yeah.
think there might have been a time in my life, and probably yours, where I didn't, that just was the noise. I couldn't say, oh, I need to compassion right now. It's just like, I just hate myself. But
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. And then there's those moments of like you going to somebody that you really trust and them being the self because you're having difficulty accessing it
Right.
and saying that's so sad
I
and
don't know if
bringing
I
the
was brave enough
compassion.
to do that back in the day. I think that is a
Yeah.
practice of connecting with others that I have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just to take that whole situation and sort of kind of map it out for a second, would
Yeah.
that be okay?
Oh yeah, I'm here for yeah. Free therapy with my most respected therapist friend. Yeah, I'm here
Woo!
for it. Just
Yes.
count me in.
So much fun, right?
Yeah, having the
It's
best
so
time.
I love this stuff.
But
So just
this
being
is why we're, a little amazing, but a little quirky nerd.
it's being able to like get curiosity towards well, I'm hearing number one, I wouldn't have done that back in the day,
Right.
right?
I think I'm
Like,
saying this more for like somebody listening who
yes.
can't decipher, like, oh,
Yeah.
I need to check this against
I'm
somebody, that it's
hearing
more just like, oh, I hate
yes.
myself.
Yes. And so, a lot of the time at the very beginning, it's just about noticing it's happening right now.
Okay. So the
Like
first
that
thing would be like, oh, that self-hate is coming up.
it's coming up, right? And
Mhm.
then most people are like, "Well, I know. How do I not?" Like, I know. What are you kidding me? I'm with it all day. And I'm like, yeah, being blended with it and merged with it is very different than being with a part that hates you.
I love this. Does
It
everybody
is
understand this? I wish we had an audience right
really
now. Does everybody understand
different.
this? And it's a podcast, so it's unfortunate, but Adrienne is moving her hands where they're intertwined when she's saying the word blended and they're separate when she's saying the word watching or whatever, you know. So
Yeah,
and it's so funny, right? Because no, if I, it's hard to think that that is an action step, and it's such a big action step.
it really is. And sometimes we can do it for ourselves just by witnessing, like, oh, it's happening right now. And where do I feel it in my body? Because it's not just a voice, there's a voice and we feel it in our body. So a lot of the time we're having sensation that's really uncomfortable in the body and our brain translates it into this self-hate,
Mm,
right? And so what if we could just bring it into like my chest is completely constricted? Like
mm.
then you notice, oh, I feel small, I feel constricted when this self-hate part does what it does.
And if we start to
And then
label
just
that,
being able
then
to
what
breathe with it.
happens? But
Yeah,
just be
then
with it.
just being able to bring it some breath. Bring it some breath. And then if you're really blended, that's when like in early recovery, you need the coping skills, right? So it's
Right,
like, okay, I just need to take a breath, know that it's happening, and then to be able to, what do I need?
right.
Right? What do I need? And to me, what do I need and what am I craving? I feel like those two things are synonymous of like
Yeah.
what are you really craving is actually probably what you really need.
Mm,
Not what like my eating disorder part is going to be like I need food. Duh,
right.
right? Like
Obviously.
obviously. Like I need
Like,
like
where's the ice cream? Let's
yes, where's the ice
go.
cream? Where are my
Right.
chips? Like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
that that would be where it would go. But what is it trying to do? It's really concerned about if I sit with this feeling, I'm gonna not feel okay, right?
Right.
And then
Arguably
it's
die.
right. And so to be able to reinstate safety, a lot of the time,
Mm,
like, I just need to know I'm safe and that I'm fundamentally okay. Like, I'm safe and I'm okay in this moment.
mm.
And that in the past, I would have not been able to tolerate that feeling. And there are times where we just honor that binging part took over,
Yep.
right? Like, I think I saw you recently being like, it's like, I'm paraphrasing, but like the wisdom of when we lapse,
Yeah.
right? Like this
I also like had
wisdom.
a trauma therapist. I like lived for him, and I went to
Hmm.
one with the hardest session, and I went back the next day. And this is when I was like super rigid on my eating. And I said, Michael, I ate a bag of popcorn last night after our session. I ate a whole bag of popcorn, Michael. Like, and I was like hair on fire. Like, do I need to start my day cat again? I mean, these are rigid days. And he
Yep.
just looked at me. You know him, I think. He's such a great therapist in New York City. And his little, like, with his palm, beautiful, like Buddhist open palms, and his like soft demeanor, like everything I wasn't at the time. And he just looks at me and he goes, Molly, sometimes you just need a little popcorn, you know?
Yep.
And for somebody, honestly, though,
Yes.
for somebody who had like their food watched, their food restricted, their body judged, constantly, like, it was one of the most curative things another human being said to me in the history of my long-term therapy relationships. And
Yes.
interestingly, I think at that time I was like, I'm going to go do it again. I'm never going to be able to stop eating popcorn. And you want to know how many times I ate popcorn after trauma therapy? Once.
Right.
Because he just was
Yeah.
like, maybe the little girl needed a little popcorn, Mall. It's okay.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
you.
Yes. And that's what we're craving. We're craving to be human and to
Oh,
have needs and to be imperfect and
oh,
loved, right?
I
Like
mean,
that
I'm
really.
holding back tears for half of this therapy session slash podcast.
At least that's what I was craving so badly. Like, and
So badly.
so badly, so badly. Just like it's okay that you're being protective. Like it's okay. Why wouldn't you like I work at a rehab and people have done crystal meth and like it's like yeah, why wouldn't you have done that given the trauma? It's
Totally.
just and it's this people look at me like I have 10 heads when we're like, okay, can we understand the gifts of your addiction?
What do you mean?
The gifts
I
of your
know.
addiction.
Tell
Yeah. So
us.
so
It's not
so
just you and me talking. There's like a lot of people listening.
so
I know that
the
you're like
gifts,
Molly, duh, but like other people are
yeah.
with us,
So
right?
one of Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the gifts. So it would be like for me, it's like how much creativity comes when like I'm trying to like finagle what type of food that I think I should have and like, online menus and like I mean like those are like creative aspects of me
Hmm.
that like are like, working away, right?
I
Like
never thought of
finagling
that.
and oh my God, like crafty as F, like, like really. And just to be able to start to notice, like, those are parts of our personality that need permission to be able to be free.
Oh
Otherwise,
wow.
we're going to keep wanting to do it through the addiction or through the food. So
That's it.
it's
I
those are
don't
the
know that I
gifts.
understood that. That is really fascinating. So
And
what
we
I
have
hear you
so
saying is
many
like there's this
gifts.
part of me that's obsessed, used to be like obsessive about food and menus and what I mean. And instead of having deep shame about that, you're like, huh, turns out I'm a really thorough creative thinker and I like really
Yes.
intricate foods. How can I channel that elsewhere?
Yes.
I'm just having
Yes.
this. That's great. I never thought of it like that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and it's such a relief. It's like that moment of like, oh, we just needed popcorn. It's like that same kind of moment of like, oh my gosh, like these are just parts of our, aspects of ourself actually
Yeah.
that are like trying to figure out ways to protect us like through drugs and alcohol or through food or through whatever, through scrolling or through, like we're still everybody's going to have some aspect of this.
I
And
just
sometimes
needed
it's just the
someone to tell,
wisdom.
yeah, I just needed someone to tell me. Like,
Yeah.
I think if he would have said to me, it's so interesting being a therapist, right? Because it's like you never know which road's the right road to take. And you sometimes just cross your fingers. But I think if he would have said to me, like, yeah, let's talk that through. What happened? If he would have like done a chain analysis with me and like problem solved for me to not do it again, I think it would have so
Yeah.
reinforced, like, oh, it's really bad. And instead of just being like, hey, maybe seeing a little popcorn, it never happened again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
fascinating what it is to
Yes.
be loved and accepted exactly as you are sometimes. It's such an
Yeah, because in
underrated
that moment,
tool.
absolutely. And in that moment, as a therapist, you don't realize, but you're talking to an exiled child part.
What
Like
is an
in those,
exiled child part?
you're talking to like an inner child that has been
Mm.
exiled from the system of like it's bad to eat popcorn or it's bad to have
Eat,
rules or like what
right.
or eat, right? It's bad to eat. How about that?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that would be
emotionally.
right. It's
Right.
bad to eat emotionally. And so to have someone else be the self in that moment to say, "Hey, it's okay. It's all right." Like that's a healing. It's a we call it direct access. Like it's a way to directly talk to a child part in another person. We do this in our relationships. We do this with our friends. We do this as therapists. We talk directly to inner children that are wounded and we say, "You know what? It's okay.
Mm,
Like you're human. It's all right. I love you." That kind of thing.
totally.
And it's just making it explicit for so many therapists, like this is what they've been doing, and just making it explicit of like when you're talking to a protective part and when you're talking to a child part. And also for anyone who's listening or for clients, it's like for them to know, it's so empowering of like, oh, I know I have this child part that just wants to tell you that I feel so incredibly fat today. Like,
Right.
or I feel so ugly, or I feel like whatever that language is for that person. Um, I love the word fat, but it's taken some time.
Mm,
So it's just about being able to be the self, be that self for people when they can't, and then eventually that we can be that self, that we
that's
can
right.
catch those moments and start to have that compassion for
How did,
ourselves.
like, for you personally, like, where did it shift for
Yeah.
you? Like, where did that
Yes.
happen for you? Because that
Yes.
happened for you. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, I think you're a fabulous therapist. I'm fascinated how it happened for you personally.
Yeah. So, the experiential therapy world broke me open. So that was
Mm,
my first experience of parts work without knowing it was parts work. But
mm,
we were like I was talking to my anxious part and somebody would play my anxious part and I would have to talk to it or like I would have to play my anger. Like I'm an eating disordered person. Like I'm
Right.
like anger, like
And
I'm
like
not
a
angry.
pantsuit.
I don't get right. And I don't get angry. Who gets so to have
Mm,
permission, and this is like old school permission, like we had like batakas and like, we were, anyway, and just being able to experience, for example, anger and have permission to be angry and know that it's not dangerous or that,
mhm.
it's not going to be out of control, which was like all my belief systems. I started unburdening my system slowly over time. Like I was doing experiential groups as for me, like you have to do your own work when you do these trainings.
Right.
There's no way around it. Like
Well, I also, if you have a therapist who's not doing their own work, fire them immediately, if not
yes,
sooner.
agreed. Agreed, agreed, agreed. And so I started doing like this permission of like being free, being in my body. And then I studied dance movement therapy, which is really movement therapy. It's really about somatics. It can be dancing, it could also just be like a somatic meditation. But having
A
permission
meditation,
to
a
just
somatic meditation,
feel
meaning a meditation where you get into your body, you get in touch with your
you get
body.
into your
Right.
body. Yeah. And being able to have permission and permission and permission and it's like just this permission to be
Wow.
human over and over and over again, the experience of it, because you're experiencing your body, you're experiencing emotion, and having permission to do that in a group of people, it is the deepest healing that I can ever imagine. And then I started. I had a client that actually came in that knew all of their parts, even they were deep, deep, deep in their eating disorder. And I was like, "How do you do that?" They were like had names for each one of them, and like I was like, "Oh my god!" And so I also felt like I had to keep up with this person. I was like, I have to keep up. And so I studied IFS. I started studying internal family systems, which is parts work, and getting to know authentic self and all the different protective parts, theory of Dick Schwartz, like all of that.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, it just, it sealed the deal for me that like compassion was the way. I
Mm,
also was studying meditation and Buddhist, tantric Buddhist, meditations. And so every direction I'm looking in, it's like embodiment and parts work is the way
mhm.
to your authentic self
And
and to
then,
integration.
and then like,
And
was it a gradual change into this like
gradual,
fiery? I mean, I just sometimes
I
see what
went,
you post and you're like dancing and I'm just like, God, I got work to do. Like I look at you, I'm
we
like, I have
all
so much work to
do.
do.
We all
I
do.
listen,
It's
and I have to say, I love
layers,
myself more today than I
layers.
ever have a day in my life. There's
Yes.
just this freedom, and the word. I mean, the buzzword to me today is permission. I mean, there's so. I just want to say,
Yes.
I like held back tears so many times in the beauty of what you're saying,
Hmm.
giving ourselves
Yeah.
permission. And I think that for me, at least in my childhood, I think not explicit, but it was like, don't do that. Don't look that way. Don't say that. Don't, I just was shamed into silence, but also this loud rhinoceros lion that can't help it. It's tough.
Yeah. And that's like that needs to be honored. That like loud lion,
Totally.
intuitive
Yeah.
person, like which we
Yeah.
all have some access to that, some glimpses of like that personality that was told it was too much was actually like the freaking like most intuitive person.
Yeah. No,
Like
it's so true.
like we're sensitive. No, 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 you're intuitive and you're
Yeah.
feeling and you're
I'm a witch.
human.
Yeah.
You're a witch.
I
Thank you.
am.
Yes, you
Thank you.
are.
Adrienne,
A
talk
witch,
to
a
me about,
healer.
I
Yes.
am, I'm a witch.
Yes.
I
Yes,
love
yes.
it. Talk to me. Just want to talk a little bit like about body and about movement and why it's so
Yes.
important in healing our wounds and our addictions and our eating disorders. Cause I say it a lot, but I like when other people say it with me.
Yeah. It's like where else do we feel our feelings but in our body?
Right. How
It's
are
like,
we ever going to heal fully if we're sitting in a chair?
yeah. Yeah, it's like it's about our whole body. And recently I've been calling what I'm doing the work, but it's WERK.
What does it stand for?
It
Does it stand
stands
for
for
something?
we embody real knowing.
Yes.
The work. Because the
Work.
only way to embody real knowing is to be in your body
Yep.
and to feel what it feels like. So we can talk about authentic self, but it's very different to be like, okay, like right now I see glimmers of light off the leaves in my window. I'm looking at Molly and I like see a familiar face that's been in my life, in and out of my life for 20 years. And there's such like a familiarity that's such a
Yeah.
comfort.
Isn't it?
And I get this sensation of just like a lightness. Like there's a lightness in my body right now.
Hmm.
You
And
can
you can
just,
hold
I
it
can,
like there's, and so because you've done the work, there's no part of you that's coming in and saying, oh, but she's judging you. Oh, but they're listening, or like there's no part of you. You're
that's
just able to,
definitely, I've had to work with those parts for sure.
right.
I would say there's a feeling in my stomach that's like, okay, I'm on a podcast. Let's see what I'm going to say next.
Yeah. This
Right?
isn't, but
Like
my
there's
podcast just like having lunch. I mean, that's why it was just
right.
like,
So the parts are still there. It's like it's not like once we're like, doing this integration work, it I would love to say that it ends,
yeah.
but it's more it just gets freer and freer and freer
Yeah. I found that
as we go
yesterday.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had such a dark day. And the only thing I can say about that dark day was it healed so quickly. To be able, I had that same experience. I was like, I don't think this is right. I think it's right and I don't think it's right. Let me see what Penny thinks. And then when Penny was like, whoa, I was like, oh, good. Okay. So we got to sort of love myself today a little deeper. I can't actually canceled plans I had that night because I knew I needed to rest. Like I just did a lot of things that
Yeah.
through practice, like I know works. I was
Yeah.
like, I think you need to be like home, not like going out to a hardcore dinner with all these people tonight. That's not going to be safe for you. It's exactly what you're saying. I agree.
Totally. Like that would feel too exposing if like a part of you is like feeling too much or feeling
Yeah.
like, and to be able to be with the parts of us that feel like they're too much and be like, you're awesome. Like, I'm so sorry that this person wasn't able to like reflect that back to you. And
Thank
like so
you.
often that's the conversation
Right.
that we need to have with those parts that get like super disappointed in relationship or get super disappointed in like we thought one thing was going to happen and another or we feel rejected, right? And it's like, yeah,
And
I'm
talk about
so
diet
sorry.
culture in a sentence, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
just in a
Yep.
sentence.
Yeah.
That's just a
Absolutely.
constant rejection. And so the well-worn snow groove becomes, I'm not enough. I'm never like, and so to be able to start to, I love this, just sort of lean into these parts and like self-parent is really what we're saying here. And if we can't
It really
self-parent,
is.
have a group of people who you can go to and really trust and to say, that doesn't sound right to me, babe.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know
because
what that
they get
is.
to be the parent or the self. It's really the self energy, the authentic self
Mhm.
that we can get in touch with our authentic self of like, oh, right, that was a lot for me.
I have to say, it's
Yeah.
probably really inappropriate, but I don't know.
Oh,
I'm not-
yes.
But like, well, I don't know. And I say this to you often, like, and then you had a baby who's not a baby anymore.
She's 6. It's insane.
But I really do see, I see the work you've done. This makes me cry, like, actually, because I see the work you've done in this kid. And it's like
Mm,
literally just like whatever. I healed my mother wounds, but like it is one of the most beautiful, powerful things, at least as I see it through my eyes. Your child seems to be so comfortable with herself. She seems so comfortable in her body. And you can tell,
yep.
like, at least like my intuition, you can tell like no one's ever telling her she's too much. No one's
No.
ever telling her to stop eat. Is she sure she wants this much? And like it shows like,
Yeah.
wow, like talk about healing 7 generations before us and after us, Adrienne.
And it's an imperfect art of
I
parenting
can't
because
imagine.
it so is, and it is so keeps you accountable.
Hmm. To do your
I
own
mean,
work.
you have to do your own work. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
have to, but like
Right.
if but
As to not screw up the next generation, I imagine you do.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's um we have a whole language of like a parts work type B language where I have serious mommy. Like, listen, I am in a lot of self right now with you, but this morning I was in serious mommy. Like, serious mommy was like, okay, we're gonna be late, da 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 da. Like that tone, she hates it. Oh my God, does she hate? I hated it. Everyone hates it.
Right.
It's a part, right? It's a part that's like trying to control something, and like I have a part that thinks that if it reminds someone about something, it's gonna like make a difference, but it
Mm,
only makes them slower and tired and upset with you.
fair.
So she's like, "It's serious, mommy." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Mm.
I was like, and she wants me to say, you'll appreciate this because it has to do with food. She wants me to say chicken nuggets, spaghetti, and meatballs when I'm upset. And it works because it gets us out of whatever parts we're in because she'll just
Wow.
get mad at me and hunker down, right? She has Chompy. Her angry part is Chompy that she named. And it's where she grits her teeth and like
Uh-huh.
shows it to me, like grits her teeth really hard, and now she's like toothless. So it's really
That's so cute.
hilarious because she's like mad, but she has no teeth. But
Oh,
she, yeah, so it's like Chompy and Serious Mommy can either meet each other, or I can say chicken nuggets, spaghetti, meatballs. And it sort of gets us into this like, you can't take that seriously,
right.
right? Like if mommy's upset, you can't take that seriously. And so then it turns into a smile and me being like, that's ridiculous for me to say when I'm upset. And she's like, I know, ha ha ha. And
Mm,
it just sort of gets us into self energy again. So I'm trying to find these little ways of like when I have a part, playfully naming it. When she has a part, I let her playfully name it. I'm not doing it for her because that doesn't
right.
work when you're like, hey,
Right.
you're this
Let's
name.
name it
It's
Chompy.
like
I
right.
told you.
No,
Right.
no, no. No, no. She did a whole drawing of like
Oh
what
my
Chompy looked
God.
like. I mean, so I'm trying to integrate it into what I'm doing with her, but I
But
mean, if
talk about
anything, it's like
permission. I mean, Adrienne,
accountability.
talk
Yeah.
about giving someone
Yes.
permission to be who they
Yeah,
are.
permission to be mad,
Yeah,
right?
just like I
Like
just find
you
it unlikely that she's going to be sitting in circles needing to like give herself permission, which is like, I
who
don't know, it's a beautiful
knows?
thing. Who knows
Who
exactly?
knows? But yeah,
What if
we all do our
I'm
best.
listening to this podcast and I'm like, I need to hang out with Adrienne 24/7.
Yes.
How would I go about doing that?
Yes. So there's a few ways to do that. I have workshops, which is the
Mm,
work, and that's going to be online and in person in LA, which is like summer movement, summer meditation. So that's something that folks can do. They can find me through my website. And then there are folks that are really struggling with addiction and with eating disorders, actively struggling, and the people that love them, they can contact me at Breathe Life Healing Centers.
One of my
So
favorite treatment centers in the entire world. Let me just say, amazing work happens there.
I mean, this is the work that we do.
I
I'm
know.
there twice a week. We're
I
doing
know.
it.
They have a beautiful take on addiction over there. Well, I love
Yeah.
you.
Oh, I love you,
I'm
Molly.
pretty sure we're going to have a part 2, so be prepared. I didn't
I
even get
love
to
it.
anything I wanted to talk about, but that's my best. Those are my favorite podcasts. And thanks for coming on What You're Craving.
Oh, love you. Love you. Love the work you're doing,
Love you,
Molly.
love you.
Mm.